Welcome back to the Arch Advocate podcast for Wednesday, April 10th. Welcome back, everybody. Listen, got a lot of stuff to get to. There's quite a bit going on in the world. There's still the ongoing Trump collusion thing with that story just keeps getting better. Plus the lady that was in charge of Homeland Security resigns, which there's a lot of different ways to look at that. I think that's a good thing, but who knows? Whatever. But ultimately, you look around and you've got to wonder at some point, like, are you getting played? I had somebody write in a comment about this show and about the previous show, how we were talking about cryptocurrencies and whatever, and you look at that and over $600 billion left that market. It went somewhere. And given the fervor of what was going on in the market at its peak, I don't believe that money went back into the pockets of the people who had originally put it there. $600 billion went somewhere. And we don't really have any way of knowing because it's an unregulated market and nobody's going to be compelled to tell you anything. And that's a shame too, because mathematics will tell you everything. That's why that's where you get phrases like follow the money. It's because math never lies. And people lie. Everybody lies, like Dr. House told you. Everybody lies. And when the math, you know what I mean? Like when you follow the money, when you do the math, when you crunch the numbers, and the numbers start lying to you, that's when you know you're being lied to. And there's a lot to this New Zealand story. And again, I'm not deep diving on the story because of the story itself. It's because of the moves that have been made since then. Oh, we got to take away guns from the good people. Never mind the fact that criminals are not going to turn in their guns. We got to take the guns away from the good people. All right? That scenario has been played out many times recently. In the arc of human history, recently. Venezuela, China, Russia, the list goes on. The hits keep coming. And it never ends well. When people start disarming you, you are in the process of being subdued. And these are the moves that are being made. So I want you to pay particular attention to this particular story because it tells the story of the rest of them. Every single time, like Parkland or anything like that happens, it's, we got to take away your guns from the good people. So to go over some of the math that just doesn't add up, we bring back Adam Cairns, who's been in contact with the New Zealand Police Department and various other people. Adam, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me back again.
So first thing, I got an email. I got a message from a guy on Reddit the other day. He says, first of all, the second Linwood Islamic Center shooting was at 1:40 p.m., about the same time as the first shooting, with multiple archived media reports stating that it happened at 1:40. And it takes 14 minutes to drive from point A to point B. That's the two mosques. Because remember, the thing about the mosque shooting is that it wasn't one, it was two. And they are 14 minutes apart driving at the speed limit. It says then the video ran out at 17 minus 6 minutes. So 11 minutes after the first shooting. And there was nowhere, that was nowhere near the Linwood Islamic Center. And it took police over 20 minutes to get to the mosque in midday, right? So not rush hour, but midday traffic. Took the police 20 minutes to arrive when the station is a 2-minute drive away. New Zealand police have twice refused to issue a timeline on their actions of the day. So Adam, what do you say about this? Has the New Zealand police said anything about the timeline?
I've questioned them a couple times about it, actually, just a couple hours ago on the phone. They're sticking to the story of apprehension from the start of the shooting, the initial call. He was apprehended in 21 minutes.
Okay, so they're saying this was from start to finish. This all ended at 2 minute or at 2:01 p.m.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any problems with that?
A little bit. Like the guy on Reddit mentioned that the police station is only a couple minutes away. It just a simple search on Google Maps. It's surprising because the closest police station to the Al Noor Mosque is the Christchurch Central Police Station. That is like Christchurch's main police station. It's beside the courthouse. It's the biggest one.
Okay.
Maps put it at only 3 kilometers away.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's a walk. I mean, you could walk 3 kilometers inside of 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
If you're driving it, at the speed limit, it says about 5 minutes. Now, if you're in a police car flooring it, I would say probably 2 to 2.5 minutes. So I'm surprised with the response time, the arrest. Police have pegged it. The only solid number the police can give me on the phone was the incident started at 1:40 p.m. The first call came at 1:40 p.m. We got him 21 minutes later.
Right.
Yeah.
What time does it say on the arrest report?
There's no arrest report. They're still being tight-lipped about times. Multiple news sources have given timelines of the Christchurch event. I brought that up with the New Zealand police this evening. They said they didn't understand how they have those timelines, as no official timeline has been given. Most of their stuff was published just a couple days following the 15th, as late as the 19th. The official timeline, or at least the time that it took to arrest them, was given on the 20th.
What else have you found?
Well, other publications have it at 1:30 p.m. He posts his manifesto to 8chan and fires off a copy in a PDF file to the PM's office. 1:40 p.m. 1:40 p.m. He's at the Al Noor Mosque. 1:48 p.m. Most publications agree that he leaves. 1:55, the police say they are responding to it. They don't shut down the schools until an hour to an hour more later. Some publications have him at the second mosque at 2:45 p.m. The Insider have him arrested at 2:20 p.m. Global News, News Hub, they have him arrested at 3:30 p.m. So I mean, times are all over the place.
How could it be? How could 3:30? That's a huge discrepancy.
That's a huge discrepancy, yeah. And I mean, even the Insider, with it being closer at 2:20, the police arresting him at 2:01, arresting him at 2:20, and still 20 minutes difference. That's significant, in that situation. So, like the police said, they can't give me a solid time of events whatsoever. And
how was he arrested?
Police say they rammed his vehicle and they apprehended him. He gave up.
How far away was that car from the two shootings?
They say they apprehended him roughly a 6-minute drive away from the second mosque.
All right. So no matter what, there's another 6 minutes on top of everything.
There's another 6 minutes on top. Yeah.
Plus drive times, plus all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay, and so the police, they're not telling the press anything.
No, they were actually quite surprised. Other publications, media sources had a timeline period. They actually asked me for links to those sites. those news agencies to email her a copy of the links just so she can get a hold of them and issue any corrections.
And is this standard operating procedure for the New Zealand police? Do they not have freedom of the press down there?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I've never had any dealings with the New Zealand news, the police, before this incident.
All right. So we have some pretty stark discrepancies in the timeline, and you have the New Zealand police twice refusing to issue a timeline, refusing to issue their actions on that day.
Correct.
In easily the most visible shooting in over a year. Right.
Yeah.
The New Zealand shooting is global news.
It is global news, and I'm quite surprised there hasn't been an official timeline given, considering it's now been 3 weeks.
Right. So that, again, you could make the argument, well, it's New Zealand, and they don't really have the freedom of press down there. They don't have the First Amendment. It's like, well, yeah, they do, because the Constitution and the framing of our way of life, it all stems from the Magna Carta. It's not. We have the same rules in America that we do in Canada, that we do in New Zealand, that we do in Australia. They vary just a smidge, right? Like I told you guys before, like in Australia, you're not allowed to get up on a stage with a microphone and give your theories about how the Holocaust never happened. You're not allowed to do that, right? But that's a little bit different when it comes to the press. Like recently in Germany, there's been a number of German policemen that have come forward and said, hey, we were told to lie about Muslim rape gangs. It's like, well, you would only need to lie if there was freedom of the press to a damaging degree. You know what I mean? That's a move that was made. Like, well, we can't tell the press to leave because then the people will be in an uproar. So let's just pull the cops aside and say, hey, listen, everybody, we want to get you on the same page. You know what I mean? And those are moves. Those are moves to sway public sentiment. And those are methods of crowd control. And if you're listening and you can see it any other way, by all means, you can write in. Chew me up and down if you want, hurl insults or whatever, but you better have an opinion. What else could that be? Why would you want to do that? And then you get into, there's the timeline discrepancies, but then there's, here's another one. There being one apparently dead person in the doorway when he enters. Right? If you want to go back and watch the video, there's apparently a dead person in the doorway as he's walking in. And 2, when he comes back to leave. But effectively no blood, and then a large pool of blood when he returns, maybe 60 seconds later. I haven't checked. I thought he dropped a magazine and then picks it up, but others have said that there was a magazine already lying on the floor of the mosque when he didn't drop one. So there's another, that magazine on the floor, you're going to continue hearing a lot about that because there was a lot of people that said, wait a minute. And I'm not talking about over the last 3 weeks. I'm talking about that day. People were saying, wait a minute, I can see a magazine already lying on the floor. And then he comes back and picks it up later. Then there's the people already lying in a pile on the ground when he first enters. He's talking about the prayer room. There's pictures of it. He walks into the room and everybody's lying face down on the ground. Everyone is face down, not a single face. That doesn't make any sense. Everybody is lying in a comfortable position. That doesn't make any sense. This note goes on and says the reality that people freak out. People freak out when they're shot. And here they're already lying on the ground. These people, they're not moving. before and after being shot. The only way to ensure that there's no residual body flinching, and by the way, this doesn't even guarantee it, but you have to put a large enough round in through the cerebral cortex and cut off the flow of information from the brain to the body, and even that isn't a guaranteed way of doing it, but it is the only way of doing it. So the idea that this guy went through and shot everybody point blank in the back of the head and severed their brains from their spinal cord, that didn't happen. And yet, everybody's just lying on the ground, not moving, before and after being shot. And it says the bullet sounds like kind of like a loud air pistol. It's like, well, guns sound different when you're recording it with a some sort of device and then playing back the recording. Neither the shotgun nor the AR-15 are suppressed, and even if they were, it would have been deafening inside. Now, this is another thing, too. Again, shooting guns and killing people is not like it's on TV. When you fire a gun, even if it's a .22, if you're not wearing any sort of protection, putting some of those little foamy plugs in your ears would be your most minimal option, or wearing some very expensive earphones that cover your ear like Dr. Dre's Beats, something like that, only designed for protecting your ears from gunshot. If you're wearing nothing, you fire one shot and you're suffering from tinnitus. Your ears are ringing.
Actually, I think the comedian Bill Burr made that joke the first time he ever fired a revolver. He said as soon as he pulled that trigger on a .38, all he could hear was, that tone.
That high-pitched tone, yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't hear the following shots. And I can attest to that firsthand.
Anybody who's ever shot a gun as a young man who was out there being stupid without their their ear protection in, as their instructor had instructed them to wear, and they just decided, no, I'm not going to. We're all stupid when we're young, and those of us who grew up around firearms or came across them early in life, we've all made that mistake. We all know that sound. And we think about that sound every time we go to the range, and we're like, okay, I'm going to put my earplugs in. So and furthermore, it's that times 1,000 if you're indoors. There's you've got echo, you've got compression. There's a lot of things that are different about firing a weapon indoors. And this guy is acting like Rambo at the end of the Rambo Part 1. Remember when he's shooting up all the electronics equipments with the M60? He's just letting off rounds left and right. He would have been bleeding from his ears.
Well, he certainly would have been deaf. I mean, and he's narrating during the live stream.
Yeah, he would have sounded like Helen Keller.
He would have been yelling.
Yeah.
I mean, I know firsthand, just even out in the bush hunting. When I've gone out years and years ago, before the advent of electronic hearing protection. So when it gets a spike in decibels, it cuts off sound. I've fired a .308 rifle, 30-30. First round, you're just ringing. You can't hear anything for half an hour after. It's, my brother and I were yelling at each other just to get words across. So to fire indoors, sustained fire from an AR, even that first volley from the semi-auto, the 12 gauge, he would have heard ringing the whole time. I don't know if he was wearing hearing protection. He can't see that in the video, but the initial selfie on the video where he's narrating, I don't quite see anything on his head. So.
Well, there wasn't in the... if you put those little yellow plugs in your ears, because the pictures where you can see his head, it's like, well, maybe he's wearing the little yellow foamies. It's like, that's
even with the foamies indoors, it'd be pretty brutal.
Yeah,
you'd be ringing.
Those do barely anything at all. That's yeah.
They're okay at an outdoor range.
Now there's a bit of controversy around the lack of blood in all of the pictures and all of the video. The only blood that's anywhere is on the gauze from the paramedics and whatnot. You can't find any pictures of blood on actual victims.
And I actually brought this up with a coworker yesterday, who's actually an Afghan veteran, and he's like, yeah, with the 5.56, it's a tiny 22 round. It's going real quick. But I mean, if you're going to hit bone, shoulder blade, pelvis, something substantial, even the skull, that 22 is going to ricochet. It's going to tumble. There's going to be a spray, as soon as it hits skin. So if it's a glancing shot, there's going to be a spray.
Says says I saw no sign of blood on impact from the apparent bullets. I saw no impact effects at all.
No, I didn't see blood even from entry wounds. It might take a second or two, but
and even if you don't hit like a artery, it's like your clothes are going to be soaked.
Oh yeah.
You've got a lot of blood in you, and and then have we received a coroner's report? That is, did the coroner come out and say, "Yep, here's the report of all the dead people I processed"?
No. Yeah. Like I can understand the suppression of information because the court proceedings are ongoing, but the fact that the police still haven't issued at least a basic timeline after 3 weeks sounds, it's an assumption, it's speculation, but it sounds like they're taking time to get their story straight.
Let's see here. In the footage after the attack, which NB is at the Linwood Islamic Center, one of the shot wounded is lying on the ground have been shot and casually sending a message on his cell phone.
Oh, I did see that picture, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at the Linwood footage with the sound off, you can hardly, other than a comfortable man with some red stuff behind him on the wall, talking to someone, tell that a killing, let alone 7 murders, one of the very largest mass murders in New Zealand's history has happened.
Yeah.
Brenton Tarrant is 28. He calls bullshit on that. I don't know why. His windscreen does not shatter when initially shot with a shotgun.
Well, yeah, there was some news sources saying that he did shoot 2 while en route to the second mosque. I don't know how. There's no damage to his windshield. So, even looking at the arrest video, a private citizen did post a video of Brenton being apprehended. With a police car impacted into the side of his Subaru. I don't see any damage to his windshield at all. So I don't know how he fired 2 shells of 12 gauge through it.
Yeah, so here's another one. It says, and for a few days, the story was that Tarrant was going to then drive, they shot out windshield, south to Ashburton, which is probably about an hour away from central Christchurch. I'd leave about 1:30, but I'm not a mass murderer. And then he shot up a mosque there, which would have been locked up. Maybe he would get Maghrib, which are the evening prayers. He says, yeah, the Ashburn Islamic community. I bet that mosque would have been full at 6:30 on a Friday, sarcastically being said. He says, great planning there, Bitcoin profiting wizard. This guy says, my thing is the impossible timeline. This is the big... There's a number of things that tell people, like, this is why I believe that there's a lot of BS surrounding this story.
Yeah.
And once you start talking about mathematics, there's really nowhere for your opponent to go, because it's like, yeah, but now we're talking about math. There's no room for argument here. You just do the math. So this guy says, my thing is the impossible timeline. He says, using another account, I was banned for a week from this one site for posting links to the archives of the 3 newspaper articles quoting witnesses stating the time of the second shooting. The same post, clear, short links to 3 media articles, was instantly removed from the New Zealand Reddit page, which I have also been banned from until I decide to stop being lazy and open up another email account and rejoin that subreddit.
Yeah.
Actually,
that kind of reminds you of what I was talking to you about. That one journalist that posted the YouTube video dissecting the manifesto. And I can't find his video anymore, not even in history.
Well, the 2 people that I had on the show yesterday, they were right in the middle of live streaming, and their live stream got taken down.
Yeah. Actually, are you aware of a YouTuber, Vinny Eastwood?
No.
Apparently, he's quite large in New Zealand. He's got a YouTube channel. He podcasts. He boasts a larger audience than actually 2 of the biggest news agencies in New Zealand. He posted a video just on the 7th. Apparently, it was his 5th visit from the police. So 2 female officers approached his residence to ask him questions. They didn't get into it because he had his camera going. Apparently, his audience, by the 4th visit, are like, please put this on video. So the New Zealand police are going around and physically visiting people that are even talking about the incident.
Nothing jackbooty about that. What's the name of his show?
Vinny. You can find him on YouTube. Vinny, Vinny, Eastwood.
42,000 subscribers.
Yeah, 42,000 subscribers. He did post, like I said, on the 7th of 2 female constables visiting his home.
Boy, he's got 3,600 videos. He's been...
Yeah, I guess he's been going at this a while. I didn't become aware of him until the Christchurch shooting, but he's been trying to cover it thoroughly as well, and been asking the same questions as we have, whether it be the timeline or...
Vinny Eastwood. All right, so everybody go check him out. Oh, he's got the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, so I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get him on the show. But...
Yeah, I was thinking about doing the same thing. Another one to check out is Trevor Lyman. He runs the Liberty Crier. He's got a site. I think it's just an online publication. He's from Tina, Ecuador. I think he's up on Facebook as well. He was actually the one that pointed out the magazine already on the floor to me.
Yeah, I've had a number of people point that out.
I went over his video multiple times. And yeah, he does his initial volley of 9 shells, tosses the shotgun, people fall. And yeah, you can see it about 3 carpet squares back in the hall from the entrance of the actual prayer room on the left side.
Yeah.
He does circle it out. And yeah, sure enough, it's one of his magazines all painted up. And he goes back and forth and actually picks it up, and it's loaded, ready to go. He uses it.
So this guy that was writing in, he says, it's the impossible timeline. The fact that I posted 3 media articles onto the Reddit New Zealand page and was kicked off of it. It says other people have looked into other things. I would like to check if a GoPro on the head actually looks like the video. Well, I can answer that.
It does, yeah.
Well, and 2, it's like I have a head mount for my GoPro. I also have a chest mount, so the angle from the gun, like that would be a non-issue for me. It's like, well, I don't really know. You can. Oh yeah.
There's actually a pretty big YouTuber called Nuttin Fancy, Nutn Fancy. He does a lot of run and gun videos, or he's just running through the back country. He sets up paper targets, and yeah, he runs a head cam. Looks pretty much exactly the same.
Says, what does Brent and Tarrant mean when he said, oh, I made a mistake back there? He says, what? For going off script or going off or breaking the rules? He says, by the way, those people, the victims, are missing from New Zealand. Friend of a friend, they're gone, presumed dead. Once I stupidly did not watch footage of any burials to see if the coffins looked heavy. They virtually always get something wrong on TV. A coffin is very heavy. I cannot bring myself to think that they are not dead, but that's only one person, in my opinion. I don't know. I actually do have a hypothesis that fits nearly all the facts, but it's pretty far out. But it has to be. So this is the thing, is when you're given a proper answer, and it's simple, people just acknowledge and move on. There was an Alaska Airlines crash. This would have been right around the turn of the century, right around the year 2000. I can't remember, it was 2001 or 99 or something like that. But it was flying from Los Angeles to Seattle. Maybe it was San Francisco to Seattle. And that particular route is done completely over the Pacific Ocean for the reasons of safety. If you can be over water, then that's where they put you. And the tail, the stabilizer on the back of the airplane, it lost a controlling nut. It came off, and that plane lost control, and it tumbled from 30,000 feet into the Pacific Ocean, and everybody died. Right? So hundreds of people, or more than 100 people died as they were flying home or flying to go visit or whatever. And the news came out and they said, well, here's what happened. A nut came off of the stabilizer, so it lost stabilization and it tumbled out of the sky. Probably everybody passed out within seconds from the G-force, and everybody died. And that was the end of the story, and it went away. Because you don't question things like that, because it's simple, it's understandable, and there isn't any effery, There's, when bad things happen, we have a right to know what happened, and we know that that's a right because it is a curiosity that must be satisfied. You know what I mean? The fact that you need that information so bad, and so many other people need that information, is kind of proof in and of itself. Right? Like when September 11th happened, we all remember where we were. And within moments, we were told, well, these were Muslims who were in the employ of one Osama bin Laden, who at the time I believe was in his 60s and suffering from dialysis for his kidneys. But they were all employees of Osama bin Laden, and evidently this bin Laden guy was a really bad guy, and he hates America, and that's why it all happened. And we all said, okay, that makes sense. We all accepted it. And then we found out about, Tower 11 or whatever, Tower 7?
Oh, Tower 7, yeah.
Okay, so we find out about this building across the street that didn't get hit by anything, and it went down from a controlled explosion. And we said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And then we found out that there was no airplane parts at the Pentagon. And we said, wait a minute, right? We started finding out things that were inconsistent. And of course, we have all of the Alex Joneses and Eddie Bravos and, who was that guy that just died recently that was the host of Coast to Coast?
Oh, Nori?
Chuck Norrie?
Or, no, not Nori. I think Nori's still around. No, it's the man who preceded him. Was it Alan?
I can't
Alan
remember.
Cross? Was it Alan Cross?
No, it was Nori.
No.
It was
Was it
Nori.
Nor?
Yeah, I think so. And he lives out in the middle of the desert between California and Nevada.
Yeah.
But all these kind of people came out, and they were. And by the way, he was one of the most brilliant interviewers of people who had paranormal or out of the ordinary claims, because he would just sit. I remember one time I was listening to his show. I wasn't an addict. I listened when I could, but it was a long show. It's like you listen to that show, you got to kind of commit to a couple hours. But I remember one time he was talking to somebody, Nori. What was his first name?
George Nori.
George
That's
Nori, yeah.
George Nori, yeah.
He had this guy called on, and he said, yeah, here's the thing, I'm a werewolf, right? A couple times a year, on a full moon, I turn into a dog, a very angry dog, right? Now, if you were to say that to me, I would try to, as politely as possible, end that conversation and then get as far away from you as possible. Right? Because that's crazy talk, and I don't want to hear it. I don't have time for that. I'm busy. But Nori just sat there, and I remember thinking, like, wow, this Nori guy, I wish I had that kind of tolerance and patience. Because he just sat there and just kept asking the questions, like, okay, well, tell me more. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
You got through on my phone lines, buddy. I guess we're talking. I guess this is what we're doing. And he would just let people talk. And I don't know why I think I just wanted to give some praise to Nori there, or Art Bell. Is that
Art Bell was the one that passed.
Art Bell? Okay, all right. Nori's still alive. But that thing about when you're given information, when things start getting inconsistent, like your brain starts turning on it, and that's what I was going to say, is that it goes a lot of different ways for however many people are looking into it. Some people are looking at Tower 7, and the logical conclusion that they came to was that the Nazis that have been living on the moon for the past 80 years, they did it, right? So that's one end of the spectrum. But then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's just like people like me going, well, I don't know what the truth is. I just know that whatever it is, you are not telling me what it is. And the fact that you're lying to me tells me that you do know what the truth is. Right? And the fact that you're withholding it from me tells me that something's up.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we, you can listen to this podcast and write me and, and send me funny little insulting emails, by the way, which, just so you know, they're appreciated. I don't get offended by very much at all these days, but you can call me any name in the book that you want, but these are the facts. These are the facts that the New Zealand Police Department will not share anything that they found with the local press. Now, if we were talking about Indonesia, I would say, yeah, that sounds about right. If we were talking about North Korea, I'd be like, well, yeah, what else did you expect? But we are talking about a nation in the Western world, a nation that bears the British flag on their currency, along with their own flag, right? New Zealand is for lack of a better term, just like Australia and Tasmania, they're a colony. They're under the crown. These are westernized people. The fact that they're not sharing their findings in the most visible shooting since the Vegas shooting, which also was a global event, the fact that they're not sharing it is in and of itself the news. Why aren't you sharing this with us? Something terrible happened to all of us. In a time when the Western world is already on edge about Muslim extremists, about neo-Nazis and white supremacists and Louis Farrakhan and Ilhan Omar and Justin Trudeau and the $10 million that he paid a terrorist, and like, people are on edge, and one of the soothing agents for that itch is information. Just tell us what happened. Just tell us what happened. Did you drop the ball? Is that why it took you 14 minutes to do a 2-minute drive? Did you have, was it, did you decide that on that day that you were just gonna leave the rookies in charge of the police station so that the more senior people could have their annual, police union softball game, and all of the seasoned veterans were down at the park barbecuing and grab-assing and having a good time? Anything. Just tell us anything. But you're not saying anything.
The response time definitely disturbs me. I mean, that was one of the big things that caught me. Like I mentioned, I work in an armored car. If I call in a suspicious vehicle in the parking lot, and they don't even have to be assaultive. I could just be suspicious of the vehicle, and I call the police. They have anywhere from 13 to 20 cruisers there inside of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's no shots fired, no words exchanged, nothing. So 21 minutes for an active shooter when the police station is 3 kilometers away, that's disturbing in itself.
Right. And the fact that they're not addressing it.
No, they won't give me a solid timeline other than 21 minutes, 21 minutes, 21 minutes. That's it.
Well, and the thing is that, look, there's human error, right? And everybody knows it. And so if you know that you have a problem in your narrative, and people start asking questions, then you have to make something up. You have to say something. You have to prostrate yourself in the court of public opinion and say, listen, we just dropped the ball, man. I'm sorry. All right? The fact is that we all went drinking the night before. We were a little bit slow, anything. But they're not even addressing the fact that there is a discrepancy. And the way that other people are trying to make this sound is like, well, if you question it, then you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, yeah, I am now, because you're hiding something. What it is that you're hiding, I have no idea. But if you come out and give me, if you come out and you give me a good reason. When sorry for going back to it, September 11th happened, and again, I know I love bragging on my city. I'm proud to be born and raised in San Diego. It's a beautiful city. A number of those terrorists on 9/11 were trained at an airfield that I used to work, like, literally on the same street as that airstrip, not even across the street. Like, I'm familiar. It's called Montgomery. I'm familiar with that airstrip, right? And one of the things that came out was, these Saudis were learning how to fly, and one of the things that was conspicuous about them was that they had no interest in learning how to land. Right? Like, you would think, but at the time, see, again, like, if you just answer the question, because a conspiracy theorist would look at that and be like, wait a minute, I smell a conspiracy, man. You mean to tell me that none of those employees, man, had any questions about why these brown people from the Middle East, blah, 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 why they didn't want to land? It's like, well, no, I mean, at the time, right, on September 10th of 2001, there was no such thing as September 11th. It had never happened before. Yes, things might have stood out to you, but you would have just been like, yeah, it's really none of my business. These are paying customers. These are clients. Who am I to question things? Like and that's exactly what happened, right? When people started asking questions like, why did nobody ask these people why they didn't want to learn how to land? So we found out, they dug in, and guess what? They gave a very reasonable answer. Like, well, to tell you the truth, you got to remember, September 11th hadn't happened yet. There was no point of reference in anybody's mind that would have made you question that, To somebody who trains pilots, it would have looked a little bit off, but just a little bit. And so I look at that and I think, oh, okay. I mean, I can see that. Noted. That's never going to happen again. That'll never happen in America or the Western world again. But I can understand it. That's the thing about answers. That's the thing about truth. You know what I mean? Like, just say it. And if you screwed up, like those pilot, the instructors, those pilots, they came out and they said, listen, man, I really screwed up here. I'm sorry. And then it was over. Nobody asked any more questions after that because it was like, all right. But these people are saying nothing. Nothing about the multiple discrepancies in the timeline. Nothing about their response time, right? Nothing about the fact that there's 3 other news organizations out there that all have 3 different stories. And none of this stuff adds up. You've got the 6 minutes after the second mosque shooting, and then there's the car accident, and then at the same time. So what you're saying is that between 1:40 and 2:01 p.m., right? So in the space of 21 minutes, this man shot a bunch of people, got back into his car, drove a 14-minute drive, shot up a bunch of more people, right? So there's the time of how long it takes to shoot or discharge that many rounds while sweeping both mosques. So there's that amount of time. Then there's the 14-minute drive time, and then there's the 6 minutes between the end of the second shooting and when the cops crashed their car into his car. And any excess time in there between, like if the cops smash his car and they say, okay, well, we arrested this guy at 2:01. Well, how long did it take you before you marked the time? Did you strike his car with your car and then immediately look at your wrist? Said, hey, look, everybody. No, that's not what you did. You struck his car. You stepped out of your vehicle while simultaneously drawing your weapon. You weren't thinking about what time it was. So for 21 minutes from start to finish, okay, the math is wrong here. And math is never wrong. It's math. I don't like it. Anyways, if you want to support the Arch Advocate podcast, you can do so with cash, money. Go on to paypal.me/archavocate. It's my birthday this month, people. Come on, man. Happy birthday to me. This show costs money, all right? Now, if you want to support the show, alleviate some of that cost, help a brother out, paypal.me/archavocate. Stay tuned, and we're pouring over these facts as they come in. We're digesting the information as we process. And let me just, for your own peace of mind, let me just read you today's devotional. All right? Calm down, everybody. April 10th. This is from a devotional book called Jesus Calling, written by a longtime missionary called Sarah Young. It says, trust me in every detail of your life. Nothing is random in my kingdom. Everything that happens fits into a pattern for good to those who love me. Instead of trying to analyze the intricacies of a pattern, focus your energy on trusting me and thanking me at all times. Nothing is wasted when you walk close to me. Even your mistakes and sins can be recycled into something good through my transforming grace. And while you were still living in darkness, I began to shine the light of my presence into your sin-stained life. Finally, I lifted you up out of the mire into my marvelous light. Having sacrificed my very life for you, I can be trusted in every facet of your life. Amen. It's patterns. That's the show for today. Adam, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Hey, no problem. Look forward to the next.
All right. And for the rest of you, I'll talk to you on the morrow.